The Madman! Welcome to the top cards of the week from the Custom Hearthstone subreddit. So let's get started with Self-Sacrifice. It's a 1-mana Warlock quest. Destroy your own hero, reward immediately cast Ghost form. Set your hero's health to 20 and upgrade your hero power. And this is an interesting design where it makes your opponent afraid to set you at a low health total, because otherwise you could kill yourself and then set yourself to 20 and have an upgraded hero power. Also, it always starts in your hand due to being a quest, so it's very consistent. And that's where I find the design of this card severely lacking. Quests are designed in such a way that your opponent is supposed to be able to track the progress of the quest. That's how every single quest works, and usually is a ticker. But Self-Sacrifice in particular, the way that you should play this card is you shouldn't play the quest out until the turn that you're about to destroy your own hero. You would do that with something like, oh no, you've been set to 5 health. You play Self-Sacrifice, you life tap, you play Hellfire, and then whoop, you're at 20. So for 1 mana, you've effectively healed for 17, and then you upgraded your hero power. So really bad design, given that it's a quest. Might be an interesting spell, but for the crime of making this a quest, I'm going to give the design on this a 1. The balance of the card is also a 1, given how you can abuse it by just playing it out when you're about to die. Sure, your opponent can start playing around it, but blah. Next up is Vera Matharis. 6 mana, 6/6, a Warlock Demon. Battlecry, you can use empty mana crystals this turn. Whenever one is used, destroy it. So it seems to serve 2 main purposes. 1, you play it in an aggressive deck. You could play the 6 mana 6/6, and then you could even still have 6 mana because you can use all your empty mana crystals. So you could lay down another 6 mana worth of threat. However, then you have 0 mana crystals. The other use of it is in some sort of combo deck. On 10 mana, you play Vera Matharis, spending 6 mana, and then you have 4 mana left over. But after you use that 4 mana, you have another 10 mana that you can use. So it's a 14 mana turn on turn 10, if you have Vera Matharis. And I feel like that's really dangerous. It really limits design, and Emperor Thaurissan was around for a bit, and that worked out. And you would usually get more than a 4 mana discount with Thaurissan across your hand. So I was thinking, yeah, maybe something like this can work for Vera Matharis, especially since it has to be a large flashy finish, otherwise you have 0 mana crystals left. So even though I think this is a very dangerous card to print, a card like Vera Matharis just might be able to warrant it. And I couldn't think of anything too overpowered that you could do for 14 mana. That wouldn't be ridiculously complex. So I'm going to give it a 5-star for design and a 5-star for balance. It's kind of like a Shudderwalk idea of, yeah, I know this could possibly create a degenerate 1-turn kill combo, but that's okay. If you want to set up something so elaborate, then go for it. Next up, it's the Hunter card, Owleen Bronzewing. 4 mana, 2/6 beast. Inspire, add a random wild snack to your hand. Wild snacks can be cooked. The wild snacks are raw fish, raw bugs, raw crab, raw mouse, raw reptile, all of which take 2 turns to cook into a top version of itself, and then if you let it sit for 1 more turn after that, it turns overcooked, which is even worse than the original version. Off the bat, I'm going to point out a few things that shouldn't happen in design. Raw fish and raw crab should give the same amount of stats. So they should both be +4, +6, then +2. Raw mouse is definitely overpowered. Raw reptile should, and this is to the author's admittance also be beast synergy. So if you control beast, probably gain armor. But this is an example of just something where there is way too much going on. This is the type of card where I think you take elements of it and maybe spread it out into multiple cards. There's some good ideas here of cooking and like overcooking stuff, but to fit it all into 1 card is just a bit much. And also Inspire is a dead mechanic. Probably could just be a Battlecry, but in the case of a Battlecry, that is so many possibilities and you're only getting 1 of them. So for design, I'm rating it at 2 stars. 2 stars because I think there can be something salvaged here and it is pretty creative. For balance, it's 1 star because it's actually just dreadfully weak. In order to use it, you'd have to spend 6 mana to get a 2/6, and then you add 1 of these cards to your hand, and then these cards, they're not that much stronger than a card, which is a bit weak. Who is that good boy? 1 mana Hunter card. Give a friendly beast that attack this turn +2/+2. So I really like the idea of a card that rewards having attacked this turn already. So that makes it a slow effect instead of your traditional buff card like Blessing of Kings. But what it's most comparable to is just a minion, because minions don't attack, and that's kind of like a 1-mana 2/2 minion then, right? And a 1-mana 2/2 minion with the requirement that you're putting it on the friendly beast that has just attacked is a little bit on the weak side. So I suggest something like +3/+2 or maybe +2/+3 for 1-mana 2/3 or 3/2 with the requirement that you've attacked with the beast. Design wise, 5 stars. I think it's a really good mechanic that could be used. Balance wise, 3 stars in the sense that with just a +1 on the attacker health, I think it would be good to go. Next up, a meme card managed to make it through the custom Hearthstone Reddit post. 99 mana, 15/15. Cost 1 less for each action that was added to the history bar this game. First card to ever reference the history bar. You might be wondering, how many actions are added to a history bar during a game? And fortunately, one of the Reddit users was tracking it in a control Paladin style, and they found that even their highest amount of games, and believe me, control Paladin lasts a while, was 89 actions, making this unplayable pretty much in all but the most extreme of history bar abusing decks. And that is just simply ridiculous. There should be nothing ever referencing the history bar in this game. Design 1 star, balance 1 star. Too weak. Bloodthirsty Scarecrow, 4 mana 4/6. Mech. Battlecry, summon a 1/1 unlucky victim for your opponent and attack it. The unlucky victim is a 1 mana 1/1. Effectively making this card, for most of the time, just a simple 4 mana 4/5, which enters play damaged by 1, similar to Injured Blademaster. I don't know if there is enough room for space of this card, but maybe if there were a card printed that rewarded you for killing a minion from your opponent's side, then I could see Bloodthirsty Scarecrow be printed alongside that card. As stands, I'm going to give the Bloodthirsty Scarecrow a design of 3. Just because it's very similar to Injured Blademaster and doesn't really offer much on top of that. For balance, it's 5 stars. I mean, it's not that hard to balance because it's basically Yeti with a slight benefit. It does activate Battle Rage, it does activate Frothing Berserker, and that's fair enough. Timi Turtle! Neutral 4 mana 3/5. At the end of your turn, gain Divine Shield. At the start of your turn, take 1 damage. In essence, making this similar to Tar Creeper in the sense that it does something different on the opponent's turn. Because on the opponent's turn, it's going to have Divine Shield, but on your turn, it won't have Divine Shield. I found myself being convinced that this is like a 4 mana 3/4 Divine Shield. Because if your opponent pokes down the Divine Shield, then it will do 1 damage to itself on the start of your turn, which could kill itself if it's at a 4 mana 3/1. It has its pros and cons over Silvermoon Guardian. And if a card is being compared to Silvermoon Guardian, it's probably not that strong. Timi Turtle should probably be a beast, or maybe it could be re-flavored as something like a malfunctioning bot. So the design on this card, I'm going to say 4 stars. Pretty interesting idea. Balance-wise, I think it's off a little bit, so I'll give it 4 stars. And it's probably just off by stat, so it could be a 4 mana 3/6 perhaps. Taunt would be a really interesting addition to the card. Next up is Serve Up. Summon a 0/2 Dog's Dinner for your opponent, and it gives +3/+3 to any minion that kills it. I think that's cool flavor. Now, I have a problem with the flavor though, because it doesn't make sense for Dog's Dinner to buff anything that's not a beast really. So I suggest that this get changed to a beast that kills it. You would only really play this card if you were able to kill it immediately anyways. So the downside of your opponent being able to kill it themselves shouldn't really ever come into play. I feel like an addition like that just might balance the card enough, because right now I think it's overpowered as well. So design on this card, I think 4 stars. Probably just change it to beast and it might be balanced enough. Balance 4 stars. I think it's a bit overpowered at the moment. Next up, Shark Pup. 2 mana 3/2 beast for Hunter. Battlecry, if your opponent controls more minions, gain Rush, otherwise gain Stealth. 2 mana 3/2 Stealth and 2 mana 3/2 Rush, they're both good. I think this is a cool way of introducing modular minions, similar to choose one minions. They appear differently in different situations. In this case, if your opponent has more minions, you probably do want Rush so you can kill them. And if your opponent has fewer minions, you might be up against a control deck. Stealth is probably better. And though both are very strong, Rush, yeah, that's a little bit much, but it's meant as a comeback card then because your opponent has more minions. So that's probably fair. So I'm gonna give the balance of this 5 stars and the design of it a 5-star. I really like the idea of a modular minion that changes based off of the board state. Next we have Infinite Toki, 6 mana, 5/5. Battlecry, add a random unnerfed card to your hand. The card is similar to Toki in the sense that it's also a 6 mana, 5/5, and then add a card. You might argue Infinite Toki is stronger because the card is unnerfed, but it's not a minion, which means it's not always useful. The big problem with this card is, I mean, there are few problems with the card. One of the problems with the card is that where do you draw the line on unnerfed? Are we talking about since the game has been officially released? Some of the cards have gone through multiple changes. And sometimes you're getting Blade Flurry, which really feels terrible. So because of the very unclear nature of this, and also you'd always have to reference something and the list would keep growing and keep changing, it's just too much of a pain, I'm sure. The design is a 1-star. Balance is something like 4 stars. It would probably be pretty fair. Fair card, but terrible design, in other words. And finally, Granor the Flaming. 6 mana, 6/6 demon for Warlock Battlecry. Deal 6 damage to a friendly minion, and any excess damage to all other characters. So the card I compared it with immediately was Fellfire Potion. Granor the Flaming does a similar thing, where if you target a 1 health minion, such as Kobold Librarian, then you are dealing 5 damage to all characters. By the way, it's a little bit unclear given the grammar of this card, but the intent of the author is for Granor not to deal damage to itself. So the card should be rewritten as Battlecry deals 6 damage to a friendly minion, and any excess damage to all characters other than Granor. For the reason that it's Fellfire Potion plus a 6/6, that is definitely too powerful. But I do like the idea of this card. It's very much similar to the Lunar Shot that we saw last week. Design, I'm going to give 5 stars. Balance, a bit overpowered right now, 3 stars.